am Isis with Sistah Scifi. This is Sistah Scifi Wind Down Wednesday. We are discussing Never Whistle at Night, an anthology of indigenous dark fiction edited by Shane Hawk with a foreword by Stephen Graham Jones. Now I know what you're thinking. You're like, she just said Sistah Scifi Wind Down Wednesday. It's Friday. This discussion was initially supposed to happen November 1st. And then my technology wasn't technologing. And so Dr. Darcie Little Badger was gracious enough to reschedule to today, which is not a Wednesday. And it's weird. Hey, Timothy. But rock with it. It'll be fun. So I'm excited about that. It was important for me to discuss Never Whistle at Night in November because in the US we celebrate Native American Heritage Month. And I'm very grateful that Dr. Darcie Little Badger, who should be joining soon, will discuss Never Whistle at Night with us. We will be focused on discussing the introduction by Jones and Dr. Darcie Little Badger's short story, The Scientist Horror Story, which was terrifying in a totally different type of way of horror. So I'm excited to discuss. I should be able to see the comments. The last Sistah Scifi Wednesday, it was hard, but I think this time it'll be good. So those are all the announcements while we wait for Dr. Darcie Little Badger. I'll pause there. How is everybody's Friday going? My Friday is good. I got my COVID vaccine and my flu vaccine this morning. And I am grateful for everybody's patience as I get out orders. I will work on them some more this weekend. It's intense out here in these book selling streets. And hey, Sonia. And I'm working hard on confirming some in-person author events. I can't wait to announce it. I've been working hard for the past 2 weeks on one author. And I think we're close to doing something in person on December 10th or December 15th. And then confirming other events in January and February, which will be a lot of fun. So that is me. How is everybody else out here on the chat? Let me know if you have fun plans for the weekend. I'll be resting this weekend and cleaning the Sistah Scifi office. So what are your plans for the weekend? Oh, and I'll be reading so much. I will be reading Warrior of the Wind to get ready for that Sistah Scifi Wind Down Wednesday. Yes, I'm glad you're also resting. Dr. Darcie Little Badger, you should see the join request. Let me know if you don't. I'll resend it. Yes. If you don't see it, feel free to send me a request to go live with me. But you should see the request in Instagram. Oh, there we go. Oh, it's saying you're unable to join. Let me resend you the request. Oh, there you go. Okay. That's hey, I love the hair.
I don't know. Hello.
Hi.
Can you hear me?
I feel like I know you because I'm on your Instagram so much, but I also have to realize I do not. So thank you so much for saying yes to get on live and discuss Never Whistle at Night. I was really excited to learn about the anthology. I'm really excited to discuss it with you. So before I jump right in, can you please introduce yourself to Sistah Scifi siblings and other folks who might be watching the live?
Yeah, hello. I'm Darcie. I have 3 books coming out the most recent one's going to come out this spring. But I also write a bunch of short stories, sci-fi, fantasy, horror mostly. I've done some comic work, and I even wrote a few scripts for the children's TV show, Not Quite Narwhal. So I do all sorts of things.
All sorts of things. I think this is a good place to start. Tell us about your titles coming up. It sounds like 2024. Yeah, 2020.
Yeah, and so I just learned that the official date is April 16th, 2024, and it's Shannon Lende, which is the prequel to Alatsaway, my first book. Yeah, I'm like nervously excited for it to drop.
Why nervously excited? Why not just nervous or just excited?
I'm always like, this is the part. So mostly I'm okay with being published. Like I don't mind public speaking or meeting new people is really fun, especially when I meet readers. Like I've been doing a lot more events recently where I'm going to schools and libraries. I just got back from Michigan, actually doing a pretty big library event. But it's that period when the book isn't out yet, but when you can't make any more changes because the final edits have gone in. So I always wonder, what if I think of something I want to change and I can't? And I think that's what makes it difficult. But once readers get it, it's almost like it is reached that point where the story is finished and it's in their hands now, and I can kind of just let go of it.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense. I never thought about that. Dreaming Truth author, Sis Hi. If you are if you don't follow Dr. Darcie Little Badger before, click on this white arrow. It'll give you the option to follow Dr. Darcie Little Badger. I love your Instagram.
Oh,
I love like the writing sprints. I'm like, and I mean, usually authors are like, this is my book, or this is what I'm writing, or this is what I'm reading. You also like have a lot of fitness videos, which I'm like.
So I think I still think of Instagram because I was a scientist for a long time. I just went to full-time writing in 2020. So for me, social media is still kind of, I don't know if I'm ever going to transition over into thinking of it as primary, like a publicity thing. I still kind of think of it as me like posting whatever I feel like, mostly like just selfies of myself and my animals and things like that. But yeah, I've gotten really into weightlifting, and so I'm always posting photos of me flexing. I was like, oh, that's a little bit crazy.
Yeah, I love it. I was like, when I see it, I was like, I need to get up and go to the gym. But I
love that it makes me, what I realized is just that I before I started doing this, I travel a lot, and a lot of times I go to these conferences where there's books, and I end up like filling my bags of books, and I like to do everything carry-on. So I've noticed that since I've gone into strength training specifically, it's so much easier for me just to get around places. So like that's why I do it. The books.
You do it to carry the books. I love it. You're like, it's for the cause. Mm-hmm. So okay. So let's talk about Never Slept at Night. And what did you think of the anthology? What did you think about being a part of the anthology?
Yeah. And I'm still actually not finished reading it. So I did get my contributor copy, but my bookshelves have a lot of books that I need to read. So I'm
and I should say today's conversation will focus on the introduction in your story. So I won't, so it's okay.
But I know for a fact that a lot of the authors in it are authors that I enjoy reading. So I'm pretty excited. They even got Stephen Graham Jones to do an intro, which, I mean, he's an iconic horror writer. So that was pretty cool. And yeah, I was invited to do this anthology. I think it was shortly after Shane made a tweet. It was back in the days of Twitter being Twitter, just being like, oh, I want to do an anthology with horror stories. And I think that he got a very preliminary acceptance there. So he was looking for writers who would be willing to send a story for their consideration. They also wanted to leave a lot of these spots open for the slush pile for people who might not be known by the writing community to send in their work. So it was kind of a mixture of both. And something that I'd want to do for a while is I worked as an oceanographer for a time, and before that I was a student studying geoscience. And scientists do sometimes read something and without knowing too much about it, they think like, oh, that'd be so cool for like a story, and you end up talking about stuff like that. And I thought it would be funny if there's a bunch of scientists just trying to scare each other, and one guy just tells a scary story and the other scientists pick it apart and be like, okay, there's a plot hole there, I don't believe this is, and then a scientist ends this with what's really scary for us is that a lot of times, especially like I worked in earth sciences, I looked at ocean acidification, which is what's happening as the pH is slowly decreasing in the surface ocean due to the uptake of CO2 from the atmosphere, and how changing temperatures might affect like plankton and anyway, just a whole bunch of things, and thinking about hurricane strength in the future, and sometimes when you do a lot of research in this field, there's some things that are pretty clear, like you can see a pretty clear trend, and you know that if it keeps going, things are going to get pretty bad for everyone, and it can be very frustrating, like shouting at the screen of a horror movie saying, don't go into the house is dangerous, but it's almost like these warnings don't accomplish much, or at least that's what it feels like, when in actuality, like, we are, there are some victories, and you just got to keep focusing on that and the good that you can do. But so I ended up ending this story with a scientist telling a really brief story about that feeling, and then everyone being like kind of creeped out by it. Yeah, it was just a fun thing that it was so cool that I had the chance just to write this and not feel like I had freedom, freedom to tell a scary story as an Indigenous writer that wasn't constrained by any, stereotypical expectations of us. We were basically able just to be creative, and everyone told their own story. And they're all different, which I haven't finished yet, but I know I'm gonna like them all.
What are constraints that you would, outside of this anthologies, that you would be worried about as an Indigenous writer?
Yeah. So this is less so for my generation, but I once spoke with a writer who is the generation before mine, like he's still being published. And he said, when I was, this was back when I was in my 20s, so I'm not anymore, when I was your age, Native writers were expected to write a very specific type of book, literary and also very tragic and sad, which, like, there's a place for those definitely, but also I've always been a sci-fi fantasy nerd. I love horror, and I'm starting to slowly see a wider representation of genre fiction, not just for Native writers, but for other groups of people who in the past have kind of be underrepresented in those like sci-fi fantasy fields. So that's one thing, is just this expectation to always be focusing on the past, on trauma, on things that definitely are important to write about, but not really something I want to write about, just because I'm a big fantasy type person. And I guess another thing is that sometimes, for example, an author, let's say the Goosebumps series, like just has a whole bunch of different tropes and different monsters and stuff. And I'm like, I want to be able to write about anything and not necessarily, lip on Apache specific monsters and things, which, all right, I do love writing about my culture, but I was like, I don't want to be expected to. I want to do it because I like it.
Yeah, or forced to, or constrained to.
Yes,
so
yes.
yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. So DJ Reed's book says, "Hi Darcie." So I just wanted to call you.
Yeah, I saw that. I was like, oh, my friend.
that comment from the chat. Okay, so sometimes I'll ask broad level questions about the book we're discussing in general, and sometimes I'll go page by page. So this live, I think I'll do a little bit of both, if that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. So in the introduction by Stephen Graham Jones, and I'll ask a couple questions, and then I'll also ask if you'd like to read an excerpt from your story, you can, but obviously no pressure because I didn't give you a word.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I wonder if I even have my copy with me. Oh, it might be in my Texas house.
So yeah, absolutely no pressure. So this is from the introductions, but stories like this, and in the introductions, Stephen refers to another story that he was told at a conference. What stories like this do for us is make the world a smidge bigger. Yes, we now have to expand the borders of real. to allow for, say, two timelines that exist simultaneously. No, not just exist, but intersect. And I highlight that because for me, that's what the genre of speculative fiction does, particularly at the intersection of Black and Indigenous culture, allows us to expand our realities. Is that your relationship to speculative fiction and the stories you write?
Yeah, I do think so. And I'm trying to think back, like on the latest book I wrote. I recently did a talk at the Grand Rapids Library I mentioned earlier. And a big part of it was how, so this book takes place in the 1970s. So this is the past. This is stuff that's already happened. And it was very strongly based on events that happened in Texas that affected the Lipan Rancherias and areas where a lot of Lipan people live, but also colonias, where a lot of people who immigrated from Mexico were living. And these are like lower income areas that didn't have the infrastructure to protect them just from the damage of Hurricane Beulah, which it actually impacted my family specifically in some, it's one disaster leads to another and so on. So I was writing this book, Shannon Lende, and I was thinking of the 1970s, but also it's a book that takes place in an alternate universe. So there's a lot of things that are shared, but also there's like magic and like vampires and this fantasy element. But I think also a chance for me to revisit these tragedies that impacted my family on my maternal side and try to conceive of ways where maybe justice could have been realized instead of the alternative. I think I did that with Alatsoe too, and in some ways it's because I want to like convince myself that it's possible, but also remind myself that it's possible. Because as I was doing this talk, I was thinking about how, like after my grandmother's land was lost after her death, I was thinking like, oh, we're never gonna, the Lipan Apache will never be secure anywhere in Texas. They're very, very, as a state, they're very reluctant to concede anything, or even to work with the indigenous peoples who were indigenous to Texas specifically. But then, like right after this, Texas and Presidio actually gave my tribe our one of our older burial grounds down. It's in Presidio, Texas, so that's down south, and it was something I never thought it would be possible. And so this book, where I'm like, oh, I'm conceiving of this world where justice is achievable. I have to remind myself it is achievable, not always, but it's something to work towards. So for me, like speculative fiction always has that kind of element, that kind of thinking about the reality we live in, but also how it can be, maybe how I can play with it a little bit in the case of adding like ghost animals, or how I can conceive of ways that our future or present can be better for us, and what it takes to get there. But I hope that answered the question, because I was like, Stephen's intro was pretty. You could do a whole like a whole class, an English class, like talking about it.
No, agreed. And I like what you're saying, and I like how you brought in examples from your work in terms of starting with the reality, creating alternative histories, alternative like universes, to envision something that maybe as marginalized communities we don't have access to in reality, which is really important, right? Because I mean, a lot of POC literature does tend to be centered on our trauma, and it's like our trauma at the end, and you're like, this is amazing. Okay, so so my next question, I'll come back to that question. There was a part in the intro where Stephen Graham Jones says that indigenous short stories tend to end with an ambiguous ending, right? Like it's not clear. It's not like, and they lived happily ever after, the end, right? And I was like, oh, I hadn't thought about that. What is your experience with the ambiguous ending?
Oh, for my short story, I'd say I definitely did that to a certain extent. Like, there was one story within a story that I did end, but then like the second story was kind of left on almost I won't say a cliffhanger, but like the scientist asked this question, like, it's not hopeless, is it? And then that's just really the question that's left hanging, because I mean, this is our future. And one thing I recognize is that we don't really know what the future is going to be, and so much depends on the actions of people at a global scale. And it's just, so there's a lot of ambiguity in life too. And it's funny too, because so Shannon Linde, actually the last line of the story is, "This is not the end." And I even wonder if some of this impulse, because the reason I did that is I wanted to emphasize that even though the book is over, the characters and their lives, and they're continuing on, and there's going to be a future for them. I'm like, I wonder if that's something to do with this trend, or like, not every story is like this, but a lot are. It's like maybe just keeping open the possibilities and not saying like, okay, so it's been sad in the past, it's going to be sad in the future, that type of thing. More like saying that there's a potential for a lot. And I don't know, that's a good what's it called, observation. I was like, notice thing, observation.
Yes. And I mean, and I'm glad, because it contextualized me, right? Because in general in life, I mean, I have a hard time dealing with ambiguity, which is kind of interesting how I enjoy science fiction and fantasy. And so it allowed me to like be grounded in, like, a lot of these endings won't be like tied up in a bow, right? So it allowed me to be settled in that experience. And I think it will allow me to appreciate the stories that much more. Okay. Yes. So this is my last question from the introduction, and I'll read the part of the text that I'm referring to. So it's the end of Jones's introduction, and he says, "Why don't you come over here into the dark with us, into the other lands? We can show you a thing or two, maybe, about the way things really are, about the way things should be, the way they should be, the way they can be, the way they will be again. I can't wait." I definitely love the introduction, that invitation, but then a part of me is like, who is Jones inviting, right? Who are you inviting to the barbecue? Like, who is getting this invitation? Who do you think that invitation is for? Is it for the Indigenous reader? Is it for the non-Indigenous reader? Is it for somebody who has not historically read speculative fiction? Who's the invitation to?
I think knowing him, it's really for everyone, because he is, okay, I might do this wrong. I'm sorry, I'm pretty sure he's a professor. So, like, very used to, I'm sorry if I got that wrong, but kind of like reaching out and teaching like all sorts of people. And I think too that he's trying to make it clear that these stories, they're written by Indigenous authors, but that doesn't limit them to just one type of audience. Just like anyone, your readers can come from all sorts of different communities. I do find it interesting how so many like horror fans, and I gotta say, I count myself among them. I love horror movies. It's been harder to scare me these past 10 years, but I still hoping for that experience when I was a kid and I like saw The Ring for the first time, and I was like, ah. But I think for a lot of horror readers, it's odd that consuming horror media is almost like a comfort. And I'm like, why is that? And I think there's actually probably a lot of reasons for that. In some ways, it might help us like process traumatic things with that distance. For me, I think genuinely, I just enjoy the experience of that shiver. The same way my spouse loves going on roller coasters. You get that thrill of it. So I think that's me personally. I just like that scariness. But yeah, it does almost seem like this end of this intro, it's like, oh, come and do this scary stuff, but it is a positive thing. Like, join us around the campfire as we try to scare each other.
Yeah, yes. And I agree with you about horror. Like, I watch every episode of The Walking Dead. But I think what I learned, what I learned in year 10 is that there is a continuation, right? No matter which person the zombie eats, there's a tomorrow, right? And it'll be sad and gut-wrenching when my favorite character dies, and their memory will live on. And I think like it allowed me to approach like difficult life
Yeah.
experiences like in a very anyway. That's just me. So yes, there's a place where horror can actually has actually like kind of helped me process. Okay, so your search story, the scientist horror story, which I was like, I'm here for it. So I wanted to start with the title because usually there's a lot of suspended disbelief and removal from science
Yeah.
with horror, right? And so to say the scientist horror is like to bring in almost like two disparate worlds.
Yeah. No, it is too. And I've noticed that when I'm watching a movie with another scientist, like especially I watch a lot of horror movies, so maybe maybe it's just my experience because I see a lot more. If some sort of specialty is involved in the movie, like maybe it's genetics or something, and there's a genetically modified monster, like Godzilla-like thing, I don't know. And the moment someone says something, oh my gosh, this isn't horror, but I watched The Meg, and I cannot with some of those things as an oceanographer. I was like, that would never happen. Try to like pull you out of the experience. Like you want to suspend disbelief and let yourself be scared and enjoy the movie for what it is. Because like fiction isn't a peer-reviewed article, you know. It doesn't have to be perfect. It's just when you study something so intensively, it becomes hard to suspend that disbelief. So there is that kind of thing where science can, or knowledge of science can sometimes rain on your parade in terms of enjoying these. But also sometimes learning about the world uh, gives a lot of fuel for these disturbing, creepy stories. And so that's what I was wondering. And I believe a geologist was the one who told the first story, and he was trying to make a scary story that involved biology and genetics, and that's not his area of expertise. So he got some things wrong, and the woman who actually is into biology and stuff was like, okay, yeah, I don't buy that. So it can be an experience that varies based on what discipline you're part of. But I don't know what it is. A lot of my scientist friends just love scary stories too. It's just more challenging. It's more challenging to scare your peers, I guess.
Yeah, so when I saw that, I was like, "Oh, this is like a scientist horror story. That means like the science is gonna be spot on. Like, it's, so like it was very like the title was very exciting to me. So what I found interesting, so on page 347 of my copy of the book, he'd speak soon. Anders was a skilled entertainer, an especially useful trait in the sciences, where half of the work was communication. And I was like, oh, I mean, I think I like think of scientists as like in a lab, running experiments, writing papers, but not necessarily like in real time communication and storytelling.
Yeah.
So how did you decide, what were your set of experiences to make that a key attribute for the first storyteller?
And that's something that I learned while I was in grad school. So there are sometimes scientists who just, they aren't that great necessarily at communicating what they're learning. And that's why it's always good to have, people working in your lab or colleagues who are. Like in my case, I'm very comfortable talking to people in public, people I don't know. And because I sometimes work with kids or younger, college age students, I'm able to translate the jargon of whatever it is that I'm doing into a type of language that's understandable to a layperson, which I have to say that even though I say I'm a scientist, but if somebody was going to start talking to me in like geology terms, I would be like, oh, like there's so many different areas of science and all of us have our own specific terminology. Like there's no way one person can like know everything. But it's so important especially when you're working on things that affect people at a wide scale, such as how climate change is going to affect life in the ocean. So it's affecting everyone. So it's important to be able to communicate, and not just to people in general, but I remember that specifically there's like courses for communicating with politicians who might like helping, but you have to really find a way to condense the science into these bullet points for them to understand, why is this important? Why do you want to spend time, looking into this? So it is really, because you can learn all the cool facts and sciencey stuff. You could learn as much as you like, but if you're not able to share that with other people, then how is that impact going to spread? So there is actually an emphasis now on trying to, get scientists to take communication classes, and we get more comfortable with talking to people by going to like science conferences and making posters and standing next to them and things like that. So yeah, someone like Anders, who he's the type of person who's very like charismatic in public and can just wax poetic about his rocks and things like that. So he does well in his field. It is definitely, it's a benefit. It's kind of like people who can speak multiple languages. That's a point where when they're working with the public, it's just with science, like you just have to be able to convey your research in the terms that other people can understand.
Right. That makes complete sense. I have so many follow-up questions about that, but we will go on. So Anders starts his story. He's like, there won't be any plot holes because this story is absolutely 100% true. And honestly, like, I can be sometimes really gullible, and I'm like, okay, the science is saying that the story is 100% true. It must be true.
Yeah.
Why position Anders, as you were writing the story, why position Anders to like for it to be scary and not have plot holes? It had to happen, because horror is usually a genre where it's like we all agree this has not happened, it could not happen, and
and I do think that a lot of it is because of, so I was published as a scientist. I got some scientific articles out there, and also at the same time I was being published as a sci-fi fantasy writer. And one thing that scientists have to go through with these journals is like the peer review process, and they pick everything apart like they're supposed to. This isn't fiction. This is data and experiments and things that are going to be published and therefore inspire other work and be used by other work to hopefully increase our understanding of the world. But the peer review process is very much everything, not only, I say perfect, but it's perfect by the standards of whatever group of people is doing the peer review. So they have an idea of what they want to see in this paper with this research. And sometimes you're given the chance to try to address their concerns. Like they're like, okay, we want a little bit more. What if this organism was doing this response because of this? Can you run an experiment with a control for that? And so very much in that mindset that in order for this scary story to pass muster, it has to be bulletproof. But I have to say that the theme is kind of creepy. Like if a ghost was able to change your DNA, it could. That's not great. That's not great. So like even if his story it is not flawless in terms of its believability, it's still a creepy story.
Yeah. I mean, just like the ghost changing the DNA, what was happening to the people, the spread of the impact and the health implications. Yeah, like the story was, I was like, I'm horrified. Did it happen? I don't know. But I was scared. I thought it was a great story. So when I was reading, I was like, I feel like some of these characters may be based off of you, maybe based off of your friend group, right? Is that true? Is that just me wanting to want these people to exist someplace in the world?
I would say these characters are less based on myself than some of my others, but Definitely the experience of the, I guess the POV is from her perspective. So the protagonist, even though she has her two friends with her, especially her experience with trying to have to justify why research that helps a small group of people is worth funding, especially since this group of people is, you know, politically, economically, socially has very little power. So that's something that's frustrating to me and a lot of others in my position. But I say beyond that, there's just, I was just like, let's just randomize these scientists.
Got it. Don't go there next. Yes, I will. I do have a follow-up question about that, but I'm gonna go someplace else first. The young professor was mysterious in a myriad of ways, since she rarely discussed her personal life, instead preferring abstract subjects, current events, and work-related talk. Would Harmony ever feel comfortable enough to confide in Bets? Um, my undergraduate major was psychology, and then I got an MBA in like finance. I don't consider myself like, I love technology and I love science and engineering. I'm not a scientist or engineer. Oddly enough, most of the people I'm close to are like scientists and engineers. I like the way they think. And they do have a tendency to prefer not the
Yeah.
personal. I'm like, how's your day? How are you feeling? Let's talk about.
Yeah.
So when you decided to like share that part of that character with your reader, is that like how we as humans connect, just how folks decide to move in the world? Yeah.
Yeah.
What,
And it was kind of just showing how the two different people are different. Harmony's definitely the type of person who'd prefer, unless like he's really close, and this is just like author word of the author putting it in. Like unless they're like her best friend or a member of her family she's really close with, she doesn't really talk about her like personal life with people. Whereas Bets is more shared, more likely to share that even with people who are friendly acquaintances and stuff if the conversation goes in that direction. So it's kind of just these two different personalities who are friends but not like besties, and how they interact with each other. But yeah, there are some people who just they still want to talk about like their life, what's happened in their day, and would rather talk about their hobbies or things that they read in the news and think are interesting and share those things with people.
yeah. And I was like, yes, I've experienced that. Yeah. So, and this is what you're speaking about earlier. So, Andrew's story ends. It great story. It fails peer review, and then somebody else offers their experience, right? Their attempt at a horror story, which, as a Black queer woman, I found horrifying, right? And I mean, not. It tapped into the largest source of my fear in being powerless
Mm-hmm.
to protect my community, because like the people in power don't understand the
Yeah.
need, right? And like, and also having like being powerless and the source of that power being like, I have to convince
Mm-hmm.
the group that's not us.
Yeah.
um yeah, that was hard. When you started the story, did you know that that would be the source of the fear of the horror?
Yeah, and it was like I knew that the end, I knew what I wanted to do with the end, but because to me that's what the scientist's real horror story is, just especially hers because her research is so personal to her. She's essentially fighting for communities like hers. So I was like, okay, this is what the scientist's real horror story is feeling like despite the work that they do and their attempts to make people listen and to care about how, she's looking at things that are impacting people and the future of these peoples, and it's sometimes it can feel like you can't really do much like to make any actual change, no matter how hard you work. So that's kind of what the real source of horror, I'd say, is. And then I thought, okay, what would this first story be? You know, as the second thing I worked on was trying to figure out what the initial story should be, and I wanted it to be something pulpy almost, something that you might see like on an episode of, oh, what's a horror anthology? Oh, Cabinet of Curiosities on Netflix by Guillermo del Toro. That's just the one I watch. It just popped in my head. So it's like something that you'd see like as a pulp horror fiction, which a generally chilling plotline and stuff, but not real, like not something that's going to keep Bets up at night, unable to sleep because she's worried and she's afraid and stuff. So yeah, that's I guess me as a writer, putting real life horror that I feel and that I'm sure a lot of other people feel into the story, and that's why I love horror so much. It's just because it gives us the ability to do that, and also the ability to be writing these really fantastical kind of pulp horror stories at the same time.
Mm. After reading this, how do you want readers to move or process or activate after reading the scientist horror story?
Yeah, that's a difficult one too, because I think of a lot of people who read it and who resonate with it are going to be in like a similar position as Bets in the story, or like you or me, like wondering how can one person make a difference. But if anything I could convey is that, all right. So I'm going to kind of go back in time. So I was an undergraduate, and I went to the geoscience program, and I knew a lot of people who wanted to become a geoscientist specifically because they were interested in helping the planet in various ways. And sometimes that involves things like trying to understand how the climate's going to change. Sometimes that involves looking at habitats that are being destroyed, and like even things like what about communities alongside Superfund sites? How can bioremediation help? And something that I noticed is a couple of the people I knew as undergrads are no longer working in the field, and one of them, I remember, I don't know if this is the reason why they stopped working, but I do remember a conversation with them like maybe 4 years into this where they had a sense of hopelessness, and perhaps it might have won out, but maybe they found another way, a more fulfilling way to feel like, you know, I'm making a difference now. But on the other hand, I follow one of my friends is an undergrad who is still out there like doing things and researching things, and these scientific papers that are coming out are really cool, and they are helping us understand what we need to do in order to best prepare for the best possible outcome. Because like things might be bad. I always say this, they might be bad, but we need to fight to prevent them from being worse for future generations. So if there's anything people take away from this, it's that even though these systems are in place that make it very frustrating sometimes to try to do research that benefits, for example, a small community of coastal and recognized Native people, there are a lot of people out there who are very passionate about it and who are connected with members of their community, and they're going to keep fighting, like despite these frustrations and setbacks, and just like focus on the little victories that we when they come. But yeah, it's that ambiguous ending though, I think, that makes it kind of difficult to really think, well, are things going to be okay? Are they not going to be okay? And I guess the answer is that we don't know yet.
But I do like that framing, like things aren't great now. In like in an ideal world, we're fighting for it to be much
Yeah.
better. but then also we're fighting for it to like not get
Yeah.
much worse, right? Which is like a powerful framing. So yeah, how does your literary work align with or depart from your academic background as a scientist?
Plug in my phone. There we go.
Yeah,
Like
no
it's running
problem.
low on battery, so like I don't want to shut off. Yeah, it's so I definitely wanted to be a writer from a very young age, and I started reading from a young age before I really knew much science. And some of those formative things I'd read were like the books about aliens, and I read a lot of Animorphs and Redwall and like fantasy and sci-fi mainly. So that that was kind of that seed that then motivated me to start writing my own fantasy sci-fi. So a lot of that comes from my imagination. And imagine, like, as a scientist, you really can't, I mean, you can use your imagination to think of hypotheses and use observations and kind of incorporate them into a creative way of looking at the world. But ultimately, it has to be the research to demonstrate that your hypothesis is correct or that you're on the right track. But a lot of my literary stuff, like I'm even trying to write an adult book. Like my previous books were young adult, so now I'm actually in the process of writing an adult book, and it's definitely more grounded in our reality. But even that, I have to like sprinkle in a little bit of strangeness, a little bit of fantasy elements. It's almost like I can't help myself. I get bored if I'm writing and I don't have any like any I don't want to say magic because a lot of these things aren't actually magic based, but you get the idea. Bending reality a little bit.
Yeah.
But so I'd say that's the main way it differs, just my reliance on my imagination as opposed to my observations.
Got it, got it, got it, got it, got it. Um, so this is not a question about the anthology, the anthology, the introduction, or your short story, or your work per se, but earlier this year, Sistah Scifi launched The Science Behind Science Fiction. It's a monthly like author talk. Ideally, it'd be like an author in conversation with the scientist. Sometimes it doesn't. The first one, the author, like you, was also a scientist, so it's like you can give her both. So if there's a book tour for the people for Lots of So, I would love for you to do the Science Behind Science Fiction. It is an in-person event though, so I'm not quite.
Oh,
I can't remember where you're located.
yes. So actually Levine Carito is putting together my book tour now, and I just had a conversation with them last week. Uh, but I'm going to be going to, so I'm located in California right now. So there will be a lot of places in California. Also Texas, that's where I'm from and where my mom lives. So I love going to Texas. And I think, what was it? Oh, Ohio? Yeah. Wait. Cincinnati. Anyway, there's a lot of places. I need to check that schedule again.
Okay.
But yeah, that's going to be in April because I guess my book is coming out April 16th. So it's kind of immediately before and immediately after.
Nice.
Oh, thanks for the follow. See, I do Twitch. I'm so used to like saying, thanks for the follow. People follow me.
That's fine. Yeah. Okay, great. Because the in-person Science Behind Science Fiction is mostly happening in Northern California, so Oakland, San Francisco. Yeah, so
great.
I don't know where. Yeah, so I'll follow up with you so I know who to contact at your publisher, and hopefully we can do that. That'll be fun.
Oh, that would be cool. I love talking about the ocean.
Yeah. Awesome.
Actually, because I got hurricanes again in this book. It's like hurricanes they are a theme, I guess. So yeah, I could talk about that.
And I also grew up in Houston. I mean, I also grew up in Texas, in Houston. So yeah, so like hurricane season was a thing. So leaving Texas, leaving the South or the Gulf region, the Gulf Coast region, and like being places where like I lived in Seattle for a long time, where the rain was just like drizzle, and I was like, I don't understand, like why doesn't it just rain for real? So yeah, okay, awesome. I'm excited about the possibility of those in-person events. What are you Yeah. What are you reading, watching, and or listening to right now?
All right. So I am about halfway through Silver Nitrate by Silvia Moreno Garcia, which so I don't know what it is about old movies, but I love scary media. It doesn't have to be books. It could be other things that incorporate like creepy movies with with whatever plot is. And so far Silver Nitrate tells the story of people within the industry. Like one of the main character dubs sound and does like sound editing, and then we have a former soap actor, and then a director. So these are like some of the characters, and this is in the 90s, and so they get word of this movie that was never finished, but that's reputed to be magic in a kind of also cursed. So yeah, the plot involves them pursuing this and finishing the movie, and then the consequences for that. uh, let's see, what else am I doing? What am I watching? I just finished Netflix Usher. I guess it's been Halloween, so I've been watching a lot of scary things.
Okay. That's been recommended so often to me, and I'm just like, I don't know. But did you like it?
I actually did. I like the way that I actually preferred it to the other, let me think, the other two series I watched, I guess, Hill House and what was the other one? It's the one about the nanny. Anyway, so I like this one. And I like how things were tied up well, and also they incorporated like a billion Poe references, and it's too many to even keep track of. So that was fun.
Okay. So, Usher, I will put that on my watch list. I'm watching. I started watching American Horror Story Delicate, and I was just like,
Yeah, I saw that too. And the funny thing is, when I was at San Diego Comic-Con, I actually bought a copy of the book without knowing that it was going to be essentially the American Horror Story property that they based it off of. And I
oh,
only read like the first couple chapters, so I can't compare. One thing I liked about the book that I didn't see in American Horror Story TV series is the main character was in her 40s in the book. And so there was a lot of an incorporation of how an older actress is treated by like the press and by fans, and also being an older mother. And I appreciated that. And I was like, why'd they cast someone who's like 32?
I wish they would have done that in the because like in the when I was watching the show, I was like, if the main character were in her 40s, it would speak to like her desperation
Yeah.
around like, getting pregnant.
Yeah.
But I was like, you don't look that old. Like it seems like you got plenty.
Yeah.
So yeah, that actually makes sense. So yeah, I was able to get through half of the series, and then like this one scene happened, and I was like, oh, this is too much.
Yeah. Like, I don't know what it is. The reluctance to cast women like older than 35 is kind of annoying. I'm like, come on, there's so many brilliant actresses in their 40s.
And I mean, like there used to be a lead actress in a lot of the American Horror franchise. Like she was the daughter in Coven, and I think
Oh, yeah.
she played Nurse Hatchet, and she
Yeah.
was. So I was just like, so
Yeah.
like that thing was just so off. I was just like, I don't understand what's going on here. And then it's like so, and then they did try to make it seem like she was older. So then like the young actress had to literally be like 12, and I'm just like.
Oh,
What's going anyway, so okay, so that's reading, watching. Are you listening to like music, podcast, audiobooks,
yeah.
listening?
So I got annoyed with, so I was trying to do I'm trying to listen to Spotify, but if you don't pay for Spotify, then you get all these ads and just ruin it. But since I got off Spotify, I haven't been recommended new music lately, so I've just been listening to my same playlist on like a loop. But it's a pretty eclectic mix of things that I just like vibed with. I'm trying to think of some. There's like a song called "The Wolf." There's a song, what was it, "On My Knees." Anyway, there are things that have a beat, and I like singers with powerful voices. So
Okay, have a beat, singers, powerful voices. I'm here for both those things. So awesome. what are you doing this weekend? What should we be doing this weekend?
Oh, what am I doing this weekend? Is it the weekend yet? No, let's see. Tomorrow's Saturday. Oh, I'm doing charity. It's not D&D, but it's a role-playing game I'm doing on the channel Arvin Eleron. So it's me and some other sci-fi fantasy authors are going to be playing that, I believe, tomorrow. Yes. So it's going to be a creepy game about a group of people who are protecting the world from supernatural threats. And my character is going to be a rock climber who leads expeditions, you know, and in the past, like, encountered some I don't know what it's going to be, if it's going to be some like petroglyphs or something mysterious and spooky, and so that got her into this society of people protect. Anyway, it's that's what I'm doing. I'm playing a role-playing game with other sci-fi people for a good cause, but I don't know what that cause is yet. Sounds like they've told us it better be a good cause. No, I'm just kidding. I've done this before. They do the Bag of Giving, which is it used to be. They took a break, but it used to be like every month there'd be a couple of different games where sci-fi fantasy writers would do different charity plays and stuff. Oh, hello, little Barb. Like occasionally I look down at the group of people joining and being like, oh, hey, I know that person.
No, that's okay. So what you're doing on Saturday sounds amazing. Is that posted on your Instagram where people need to watch or come?
I need to do that. I'll post something. I think they're making graphics for it. I post a lot of updates on Blue Sky, but I don't know if anyone's there, honestly.
I'm on Blue Sky.
That's the thing. I'm like, should I have joined Threads? Did I make the wrong choice?
You can do that. I mean, I'm also on Threads. I post the same stuff on all the channels. But okay, so we will look out for the graphic for tomorrow's event. I'm excited. Thank you so much for your work. I love the Scientist Horror Story. I love this. Look at this cover. I love this anthology. And I'm just so happy that you exist in the world. I'm really excited about the possibility about you participating in the science behind science fiction. You would be both.
Oh, that would be, yeah, I've got to like get once we finalize the schedule, which I imagine has to be soon. Because I know I'm doing things in California. I believe the LA Times Festival of Books has been confirmed. Like, fingers crossed. I don't know. I'm not.
I'll talk to the publisher. So hopefully we'll make something happen, and it'll be cool and light-lift and fun. So yeah.
Yay! Yeah, I'm excited. We'll finally be IRL instead of just.
I know, right? That'd be awesome. Have an amazing weekend. Thank you so much for your flexibility. I felt so bad last Wednesday when my phone didn't work. I was like,
it happens. That's the thing. All this, if one thing about doing Zoom all the time has taught me something, I mean, it's that tech disasters happen like all the time. So yeah.
And I was like, anyway, I was like, why isn't my phone just like, anyway, so thank you for being flexible. Thank you for rescheduling.
I'm just happy to be here, and thanks for all the wonderful questions. And thank you. I saw in the chat. Thank you so much saying I loved it. That's the way, and can't wait for the new book. And y'all are great. I really appreciate everyone here in chat too.
Yeah, the chat is always great, especially if we're doing the Sistah Scifi Wednesday on a Friday. So thanks for rocking with me. This is great. Dr. Little Badger, Darcie, Dr. Darcie Little.
Hey, all of you.
Awesome. Have a great weekend, and hopefully I'll see you in real life.
Yeah, thank you so much. Bye, everyone. Now, how do I sign off?
Just click the X, the white X at the top.
Oh, all right, perfect. All right, bye, everyone.
Bye.